If your mind's running circles again, second guessing every word you said, take a breath, reset your track. You don't need to hold yourself back. Stop overthinking, start connecting. Confidence maxing.
All right, welcome to another episode of Confidence Maxing Live. I'm your host, Jeff Callahan, and we're going to get into some fun stuff today. What do we got? What are we going to do today? Well, we're going to talk about how to be funny. We're going to talk about conviction, and we're going to talk about banana ball. Yes, that banana ball. But first, I'm going to pull up this where we're going to talk about, I ran across this a few days ago, and got me thinking, like, how do you spend your time over your life? In like what bucket of sort of situation do you spend time? Do you spend time alone, with a partner, with your kids, with your coworkers, your family, your friends, and how does that change over time? And see if we can really zoom in here. Perfect. So, who do Americans spend time with over their lives? This is according to Our World in Data, and the data source is the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2025. So, what do you notice about this? If you're listening via podcast, it tracks from age 15 to 80 on an hourly basis, like 0 hours up to 8 hours. Who do Americans spend the majority of the time with over their lives? And so, alone is at the top. Then we have family next, but it sharply declines as the person gets older. Kind of a reverse J, if you will. Then we've got friends, which peaks around, looks like that might be age 16, and then kind of does a slow taper to age 80. Then we've got coworkers, that has a spike around when you would expect people to join the workforce, and then dips back around 65. Then we have children, that peaks around, I would say, 30 to 31, and starts to decline around 42-ish, down to 80. And last we have partner, which actually doesn't peak until late 60s, retirement age. And so when I first looked at this chart, I started thinking about, well, if this is just how, say, typical American spends their time, for you out there watching this or listening to it, think about like how old you are. You might be 35, right? And so you might be spending a lot of time around your children, which is great. Maybe a little less time around your partner, and then all the way down, you beyond coworker, beyond your family, you got your friends that are at the very bottom. Pick any point in your life as you watch this, and just say, like, how does that stack up? How does that stack up with where I'm currently at? And then you ask yourself the gating question, which is, do I like that or do I not like it? You might look at a lack of time spent around your family and friends, and you might say, well, I really want my friends to be higher on that list. So what can I do? Can I schedule things? Can I, I can't tell you how many clients I've had that, they'll reach back out to friends that they haven't talked to in a couple of years just because life's gotten busy, and then they reconnect with them, and then like they've got a regular, Tuesday sort of coffee meeting or whatever it happens to be. Like they'll have something regular set up. And so I think without intention, this is probably the graph if you don't take action. And so just because this is what the graph says, you can be different, you can change things. I understand that at a certain point in your life, probably your coworkers and your partner and your children are going to take up a lot of time, and that's fine. But I think there's room to nudge each of the lines up or down as you might want to. So some food for thought. Sometimes it's helpful to zoom out and look at how look at the kind of the landscape of how a lot of people do it, and ask yourself, is that something that I'm interested in, or do I want things to be a little different? All right.
What's your best?
All right, our next video here, and I'm excited about this one. So, and again, you'll have to forgive me. I'm a baseball fan. I was thinking the other day. Well, I saw a picture of there's this pitcher from I believe he played most of his career in the 70s, and he's a pretty funny guy. And I thought to myself, I remember something in Ken Burns' baseball that might be good to cover on the live stream. So this is, how do you tell I wouldn't call it a full-blown story necessarily, but it's more of just a funny anecdote. And I want you to sort of check out how he delivers this, and we'll break it down afterwards. So I'm going to play it. It's not very long, and then I'll go behind it, and we'll talk about it.
What's your best pitch?
My best pitch is a strike. A sinking fastball, which you grip like this so you get only 2 seams into it. And then if you turn your hand a little bit like this, it comes out, the wind pushes here, forces it down and away from a right-handed hitter. Thereby, he thinks it's a good pitch. The last minute it sinks. He hits the top half of the ball, and he hits a ground ball to Burleson. Burleson picks it up, throws it to Yastrzemski, 1 away. And you do that 3 times or 27 times in a ball game, make perfect sinkers, you'll get 27 outs. Unless the hitters are smart, and then what they do is they know it's a sinker, they get up and they drive the ball to right center field between Lynn and Evans, and that's called a double. And then the pitcher has to run behind third base and back it up. And hopefully they get the guy out at third, or it's a triple. And then you got to run at third in less than 2 outs. So they bring the infield in, and you don't want them to hit a sinker now. You got to strike them out. So then you go to a cross-seam fastball, which I don't have.
So, what did you notice about how Bill Spaceman Lee delivers that? So he does a really excellent job of you can tell he's probably told this story a bunch. At least it comes off that way. And he's talking about the different kinds of pitches and what you might do in specific situations and all that. And then he ends it with a type of a pitch that I don't have. And so it's a little bit of self-deprecation, but done in a good way, because he really he just says it so matter-of-factly. Let's listen to that one more time.
Field between Lynn and Evans, and that's called a double. And then the pitcher has to run behind third base and back it up. And hopefully they get the guy out at third, or it's a triple. And then you got to run at third in less than 2 outs. So they bring the infield in, and you don't want them to hit a sinker now. You got to strike them out. So then you go to a cross-seam fastball, which I don't have.
So much of telling a funny story, or in this case, like funny anecdote is you're just trying to set it up in a way where you can do a left turn at the very end, and you kind of you follow the pattern of this thing happened, and that's called a double, and that's called this, and that's called that, and then you want to go to a crossing fastball, which I don't have. And so the deadpanness in which he delivers that last line works really, really well. And so always cracks me up. The lesson to take, and I've got in my opinion, an excellent video on my YouTube channel on how to be funny. And I walk through several different low-key humor styles that are easy to implement. And so you can check that out. But the sort of the meta is establish a pattern, then break a pattern. Establish a pattern, then break a pattern. If you can do that, and you can do it with sort of a deadpan delivery, the comedy's built in. It's going to be funny. Because it has to be. All right. So our next thing, well, we'll stay with the baseball theme for right now. So, do you know what banana ball is? Have you heard of banana ball? Well, if you haven't, it is, what's the best way to describe it? I've watched a few games, and it's a version of baseball where it's a very silly version of baseball. It's like probably the easiest way to describe it. It's got a time limit of 2 hours. It's got elements where if a fan catches a foul ball, then it counts as an out. You've got a bunch of choreographed dances and all kinds of craziness during a game. You got the ability to walk off individual innings, and so it looks like baseball, but it's not actually quite baseball. But the thing is, and I came across this thread by Tucker Max, but the thing is, banana ball is doing really well. Like they just played a game at Kyle Field, and Kyle Field holds 102,000 people, and it was sold out for a baseball game, which is absolutely wild when you look at a lot of, say, Major League Baseball teams aren't selling out stadiums necessarily. Banana ball pretty much sells out everywhere it goes, and there are a couple of layers onto that. One is, yes, they provide a very entertaining product that is very different, but two, there's a scarcity thing too, because they more or less barnstorm around to different areas, and so there's built-in scarcity where people are like, oh, well, we have to go see them, right? I think they have a waiting list of like 2 or 3 million people, just a waiting list to buy tickets. And I'm going to play a clip of the main banana ball guy. His name's Jesse Cole.
Betting on yourself for the long game is always the path we want to take. And so, from the beginning, we had to figure out how to do our own food at the stadium. And so we did all you can eat. And we thought that was a better experience. And, get all your burgers, hot dogs, chicken sandwiches, soda, water, popcorn, dessert, everything all included. When we started $15, we said, let's do that. We had no idea how to do that. No one's made their whole stadium all inclusive. But we said, if we figure this out, would this be a great experience? And then we got frustrated on the idea of tickets. That we had an opportunity to partner with some of the big ticket companies. And they're like, all right, it's going to cost you a couple of dollars per ticket, plus this. And I go, so if we sell 100,000 tickets, it's going to cost us a couple $100,000? We don't have that. And they go, oh, just put it on your fan. I go, no, we're not putting it on our fan. I said, there's got to be a better way. And so we ended up buying a small ticket company and building it ourselves with no ticket fees, no convenience fees, no service fees. It shut down numerous times in the beginning. It broke. The all-you-can-eat people waited for 3 hours the first night. It always struggles in the beginning. You got to get through the messy to get to the great. Our merchandise. We've been reached out to by so many groups. Hey, we'll do all your merchandise. We'll do all your ship. We'll do our fulfillment. No. We want to have a custom box that goes with a free koozie, a decal, a personal letter. For our first 6 years, we called every single fan that bought merchandise and thanked them with a personal phone call. I go, we want to do that.
So what I find interesting about Jesse in particular is, number one, look at what he's wearing. If you're listening on podcast, he looks kind of like a human banana, where he's got a he looks like the Curious George man in the yellow hat, but he's dressed head to toe in yellow in a suit, including a yellow sort of a bowler style hat. And I think I was first told about Banana Ball, Savannah Bananas, maybe somewhere around 2019. And, I looked the guy up and I was like, well, why in the world is he wearing all this garb? Well, it's actually smart. If you imagine if he just had just a regular suit, maybe yellow tie, but, just a regular old suit. You would lump him mentally into the same bucket as every other sort of corporate, sports management, team owner type archetype, right? But by having a yellow suit, immediately he sticks out in your mind because no one wears head to toe yellow, so it's just by what he's wearing, he gets slotted into a different category in your mind. And step one of his mission, in my opinion, he may tell you differently, but you have to be noticed first before you can sort of sell the product that you might be wanting to sell. And in his case, it's a more entertaining version of baseball. So next, I look at how much conviction he has behind his voice and how much conviction he has in what he's saying about, we're just talking about concession prices right here, concessions and merchandise and all that kind of stuff. And you can really tell when someone presents him with the status quo and he goes, no, I'm not going to do that, because he wants to put the fans first. And I think that's a big reason why Banana Ball has gotten to be so popular. And now they have several other teams in their league, and they all play each other, and they're selling out major league stadiums, which is pretty interesting. But it got me thinking, how do you develop your own conviction? And I think it's some combination. I'm kind of thinking out loud as I say this, with Jesse, if I'm remembering right, he was a minor league ball player, so he's been around the game for a while. And he obviously knows this really well. He bought the Savannah Bananas, and at the time he bought the team, it wasn't even named the Savannah Bananas. They had a naming contest, and they picked the Bananas as one person wrote in the name Bananas, and then they started ideating of all the things that they could have that kind of rhyme with banana and all that kind of stuff. And so you can tell he's not at all convinced by the status quo. And so he knows how something works. He has strong opinions about how that thing works, and he's not scared to stand alone and try new things that buck conventional wisdom. And you have to admire that. And like in your own life, how do you build that muscle of conviction? So in my opinion, it probably has to start with, like, you can't be strongly I'm sure we've all met people who have strong opinions about everything, and it's like you can't have strong opinions about everything. Mainly because you probably can't know everything about everything, right? It just doesn't work that way. But you probably have a area in your life that you do have strong opinions about. You might have strong opinions about books, or you might have strong opinions about your job, or how you do things, or your business that you run, whatever it happens to be. And so the strong opinion is downstream from probably a lot of experience in that area, and probably a wide sort of breadth of knowledge in that area, because you probably don't have, like, it's easier to have stronger opinions and conviction if you know the kind of the whole landscape of the playing field, so to speak, where you understand what everything's like in your industry, and that's why you have strong convictions in the way that you do it versus the way other people do their things, right? And so look at your own life and realize that you don't have to have an opinion about everything. I think that's a surefire way to be unhappy. It's just having a drive-by opinion about every little thing. It's just too much wasted energy, in my opinion. But looking at an area where you know a lot about a particular subject or particular area, and you understand how your preference is, or your conviction is on how something should be done, for example, and then you compare that with the other options on the table, and you know how those other options work as well. And the contrast, in my opinion, creates that conviction. One of the things that I think is really interesting about Jesse is, I think it's the section right before this, where he talks about how he's not motivated by money. Let's watch that.
For me, I have no interest in money. It's Walt Disney said, money doesn't excite me, my ideas excite me. For me, it's doing something that can bring people together, to bring joy, bring fun. I think about that all the time. And if all of a sudden we're irrelevant, then we're not doing that at all. And so I never want to get to that point where there's nothing. And it's just like, oh, we're going through the motions. To me, that's a failure.
Making the decision to produce and fund your own, broadcast.
Yeah. So if he's not motivated by money, he's motivated by ideas. I think that's interesting. And I wonder, we don't have him here to talk to, but I wonder if he sees that if you have good ideas, then I would say if you have good and different ideas, then the money will come. Because fans will be excited to attend, and if fans are excited to attend, you're going to end up with a 2 or 3 million person waiting list to get into games, and so that provides you with the ability to sell out larger and larger stadiums that flows capital into the business, so that you can do all-inclusive concessions and not micro-transact customers to death with ticket fees and all the other stuff that goes along with attending a modern sports game in 2026, right? Good ideas, the money will follow, but be different. You, it, it's a really interesting combination, and I wonder where Banana Ball will go in the future, because he says he's like, I'm almost certain I've seen something where he said I will never sell, and to me it's interesting because back in like the really old timey days, there was the National League, well, the American League. You know, if you follow baseball and you understand this stuff, the American League was a startup, or in 1901, I think. So it was just a different league, and then eventually it got folded into Major League Baseball. And there was the Federal League and some other leagues, and so these leagues would pop up. It would be really interesting. I don't think this will happen, so I'm not going to make this prediction. Like, I'm not going to stand behind this prediction, but imagine a world where Banana Ball took over Major League Baseball. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's very interesting when you kind of get the combination of like radically, quote unquote, fixing the things that slow a baseball game down, and at the same time, creating a different experience that's more entertaining and selling out not only Major League Baseball stadiums, but they moved on to football stadiums and stuff like that. So they've moved on to really large venues. I mean, really large venues. It's very interesting. It's incredibly interesting. So it's cool. It's cool to watch someone who is sort of looks like they're operating at the at kind of their peak, where they're really excited about what they do. At least I'm sure there are stresses and stuff like that. You know, any entrepreneur will tell you that. But you watch Jesse. He appears to like what he does. He has a lot of conviction behind what he's saying, and the vision that he has for the future, and the product on the field apparently doing pretty well. Doing pretty well from the standpoint of selling tickets, where people want to see it, right? So I think it's fascinating. I think the lesson we can take away from this is try to develop your own conviction. Just pick one area in your life, look at the landscape, compare the way that you think it should be done or the way you do it to the other options available, and then start to develop like reasons why. Why is it important? Well, it's important because of this, and this has this other impact. And then like you start to have sort of powerful convictions. And the last thing I'll point out before we wrap today is, if Jesse, imagine if he hemmed and hawed like, oh, you know, money's not really all that important, I guess. And like the conviction in his voice, and he sort of speaks in declarative statements of, this is really important, that is really important, this is not important, I don't like this. That's important. And you know, I understand he's on the podcast right here, and you know, he's sort of providing these soundbite answers. And it could be that if you sat down with him, you know, over dinner, I don't know, my guess is he just seems like he's really a highly high conviction person. So my hunch is he probably talks like this all the time. There can be a thing where people really want to save room for nuance, which is important. Like, life's full of nuance. It's more gray than black and white in many cases. But if you're trying to lead a team, or you're trying to lead an organization, you're trying to lead a baseball league, and you're trying to sell people on the idea that you have, speaking in sort of these declarative statements and these definites, it's good. That's what you want to do. You want to do that rather than leave all this room for nuance and hemming and hawing and watering down your message. that wouldn't be the right thing to do in this situation. In like a media appearance like this would be the wrong thing to do. And so think about that for your life and see where you can apply it. And bada bing, I've been watching The Godfather. That's all we got for today. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown of a few of my favorites. We'll call this the baseball episode. And other than that, hit me up on the socials at the Jeff Callahan. Let me know if you want me to answer any questions for you on a future live stream. And as always, I'm going to play you out with a jingle. But as always, there's a book. There's a great book. It's called Confidence Maxing. It's available on Amazon. It's available on Audible. And you can buy it today, and you can read it today. And it can make you more socially confident today. It can help you stop overthinking. I believe it's the best book in the world for this. That's my conviction. All right, I will see you tomorrow, and I'm going to play you out with the jingle.
If your mind's running circles again, second guessing every word you said, take a breath, reset your track, you don't need